I was 25 and had the kind of optimism that makes you pick the bruised peaches at the farmer's market because you believe sweetness hides under damage. That summer, Los Angeles felt like a big, warm palm holding me up. I had a tiny apartment with a stubborn window that never shut all the way, a car whose check engine light had been on so long it felt like a personality trait, and a job that paid me in direct deposit and compliments about my can-do attitude. I bought eucalyptus at Trader Joe's like it was sage, thinking it could chase away bad energy. I took my vitamins. I texted my mom back. I really believed it that if you kept your heart open, good things would climb in. The night I met him, the air smelled like sunscreen and hot pavement after a small, sulky rain. It was one of those house parties in Silver Lake where the host had a neon sign that said something vaguely existential and sincere, and everyone took photos with it because sincerity performs well at midnight. The kitchen island was a continent of hummus and empty solo cups. There was a terrarium with a tiny plastic dinosaur in it, and for some reason that detail stays with me, because it felt like a joke about something I wasn't in on. He stood near the sliding glass door with a bottle of Topo Chico like it was champagne. Black t-shirt, that effortless fit you don't get unless you care more than you say you care. He had a face that looked like it understood light. Not handsome in a way that would intimidate the room, handsome in a way that made the room relax. He raised his bottle toward me as if we'd met before, although we hadn't. He was one of those people who makes you feel like you've been invited into a secret that's just for you, and I hate how much that still works on me in retrospect. If this were a cautionary tale, the music would have dropped out right then. But it didn't. We talked. By talked, I mean we stitched a little world together out of nothing, favorite childhood breakfast cereals, the very specific sadness of airports at 5 a.m., how we both secretly like the weather app more than social media because it tells the truth and doesn't ask for likes. He told me he worked in post-production. I told him I wrote copy for a skincare brand and could spin poetry out of hyaluronic acid on command. He asked for my number like it was a foregone conclusion. I gave it to him like I was stepping into warm water. Here's the problem with chemistry. It's generous. It's drunk. It forgets to consult history. We were loud laughter and shared fries and the sparklet that won't go out even after you think you've waved all the fire away. I never liked fast anything, fast fashion, fast friends, fast food after midnight, but I liked our speed. It felt like the universe was finally hurrying to catch up to what I wanted. We fell into a pattern quickly. He'd pick me up late, always smelling faintly like clean laundry in someone else's cologne department. We'd end up back at my place because my neighbors never complained and his roommate had a habit of FaceTiming in the living room. He would narrate his life with confidence, those small brave statements that sound like plans, the short film he was editing, the studio assistant who told him he had an eye, the producer who might one day be the person who changes everything. I didn't need much convincing. He was a good storyteller with a good jawline. The human brain is incredibly persuadable when the mouth that's listening to is pretty. My friends met him once and they did the thing where you all look at each other without actually looking. Later, when we were unclutching our purses and pulling off our heels, they told me the thing people tell you when they love you more than they love being right. He has a reputation, they said in different words. He's known. He's fun. He's a season, not a climate. The last phrase made me laugh because it was poetic and also exactly the kind of thing that gets written on letterboards in kitchens beside jars of sourdough starter. A Lovelace, a charmer, a guy who rotates. I smiled and said I wasn't trying to be permanent anyway. It was such an easy lie, it felt almost healthy, like moderating your expectations is the same as protecting your heart. I made a joke about me being the rotation he'd cancel all others for. It was a joke that wanted to be a wish but wiggled around and pretended it was sarcasm so it could survive being said out loud. The first small fracture came the way fractures do. Tuesday night that turned into a Wednesday morning. A club in Hollywood because his friend knew the door, which translated to standing in a different line, then not paying cover, which translated to feeling special for long enough to forget that everyone else also felt special. The room pulsed. He moved through it like he'd been born under a strobe. I lost him, found him, lost him again. And then I saw him from a certain angle, that cruel overhead angle clubs do, laughing with a girl my age in a dress that was uncomplicated and brave. He was turned toward her in a way that looked proprietary, the way a sunflower turns toward its personal slice of sky. Something in me went cold the way an ocean can be hot on top and glacial 2 feet down. When he found me again, he said something quick and charming about her being a friend, a coworker, someone whose brother used to date someone from his building. It had the chattering energy of a magician who's miscounted cards but keeps smiling. I nodded because I did not want to be the kind of person who makes a scene in a place built for pretending nothing is a scene. I told myself I was collecting data, not swallowing it. That's how I framed it. I am observant. I am calm. I am not making a mountain. I am simply filing away topography. Our nights kept happening. Quick love is like an amusement park you can hear from your apartment. You tell yourself you don't need to go, then you hear the screams and the click-click of the ride going up and somehow you're putting on sneakers. He made breakfast once with eggs that were more confident than I am. He fixed my loose cabinet door, and for 3 days I felt so cherished I forgot how much that's not the same as being chosen. My best friend asked me how it was going and I said great, which was true if you averaged the highs and pretended the lows were outliers. Then came the disappearing. 2 days first. It's embarrassingly easy to make a missing person out of a busy person without changing any facts. I told myself he was on a deadline. He'd mentioned a deadline, hadn't he? In a voice message from his car, maybe. He had this way of talking while driving where he sounded like a podcast you liked. Day 3 I felt the presence of my phone the way you feel a stone in your shoe. Day 4 I called, and the rings went from hopeful to accused story so slowly I barely noticed. When the call connected, I heard a woman's voice pick up, soft but not shy, like a girl who had just discovered she liked how she sounded when she told the truth. I didn't hang up. I also didn't speak for a beat, and in that beat she said a bright hello that pulled air out of my lungs. It was not the voice of a stranger frightened by an unknown number. It was the voice of a person who expected to be answering his phone. I hung up then because I am brave in stages, not all at once. My hand shook and I laughed, a dry little laugh that didn't belong to me. It sounded like the laugh I use when the barrister says my name wrong and I pretend it's fine when sometimes that tiny thing feels like a reminder of how easily we get misnamed in our own lives. I told myself a story. Maybe she was a sister, a cousin, a friend who had borrowed a phone. The story sounded idiotic and necessary at the same time. I waited another day. I didn't cry because crying felt like backing up the truck and labeling boxes we'd barely moved in. I shut for too long. I hated my mirror for knowing things before I did. Day 5 I decided I deserved to feel, if not safe, then at least fully informed. I still had a key to his apartment. An accident more than a privilege. I'd borrowed it once when I had groceries and he wasn't home, and it never found its way back. It lived on my keychain beside a bottle opener shaped like a tiny pineapple. I had not removed it because removing it would be a decision, and I wasn't ready for decisions that week. I told myself I was returning it. That was the sentence I packed my courage in. His building had a courtyard with potted succulents arranged by someone who believed in patterns. The hallway smelled like someone else's cooking and a cleaning product with too much soy in it. I could hear a TV from down the hall, a sitcom laugh track that makes everything sound like a bad idea you'll remember fondly. My heartbeat was everywhere, palms, teeth, behind my knees. I felt like a person in a movie, and when you feel like a person in a movie, you forget that movies don't pay for what happens after the scene. I didn't knock. I told myself I didn't want to give him a chance to perform confusion. The key fit. The door clicked. The apartment smelled like laundry again, and I wondered if that's the scent of guilt or just his detergent brand. The living room was cleaner than usual, which felt like an insult. I walked down a small hall and into the bedroom without announcing myself, because sometimes the only way to stop being played with is to stop playing. They were sitting on the edge of the bed as if this had been rehearsed. He looked at me with a calm I will never forgive. She had the kind of beauty that happens when someone knows who they are, which I recognized because I used to think I did. They were dressed. That detail is both irrelevant and the detail my body wants to keep, as if clothing is morality and undressing is the only betrayal. He was not surprised. He was not caught. He simply existed in the spot where my illusions ended, as natural as furniture, as smug as gravity. Everything in me wanted to speak in complete sentences. My brain wanted to make a thesis, support it with evidence, and present a conclusion. But the words in my mouth were all little animals, darting around, scared of light. I said something that was probably my own name. I said something that sounded like "how could you," and then something else that was just sound, like the whimper cattle makes before it boils. He started to say something with his eyebrows, which had become their own language in our weeks together. An apology that wasn't. An explanation that unspooled before it reached the spooler. He gestured, not to me, but out, as if the room could swallow me gently if I let it. The girl looked at me, and her face did a small terrible thing, compassion and calculation at the same time. I recognized it because I was doing it too. We were both trying to figure out if we were each other's villain or a mirror. I'd love to tell you I screamed, that I broke something, that I staged a grand exit with my integrity iron and crisp. I stood there. I noticed the plant I gifted him on the dresser, still in the nursery pot, its leaves shining like the skin of someone you cannot afford to hate. I saw 2 coffee mugs on the nightstand, both mine, because I had started leaving little pieces of myself everywhere like a dog leaving crumbs of a biscuit so it can find its way home. The sight of those mugs did something surgical to my denial. I didn't cry in front of them. It wasn't dignity. It was shock wearing dignity as a mask. I put the key on his desk. No flourish. No clink. The quietest little metal goodbye. My hands were steady because they belonged to a different person for a minute, a nurse or a librarian or someone who knows how to handle delicate things. I left without closing the door all the way, as if oxygen would be short inside otherwise. In the hallway, I wanted the floor to tilt and send me somewhere else. I wanted a trapdoor into a world where the worst thing about me was that I talked too much when I'm nervous. I sat on the curb outside because anger needs a flat surface to sit on. Cars went by. A couple laughed 3 buildings down, the easy laugh of people for whom the day had delivered what it promised. I texted my best friend nothing coherent and everything true here. Now help please. She sent a rideshare to my pin without asking a single question, and I will love her forever for that. Grief is strange when the thing you lost wasn't yours yet. It feels like you've stolen your own sorrow. I spent a week orbiting my phone, then I turned it face down like they could keep incoming lies from slipping into my home. I washed my sheets twice and still slept at an angle as if he were there. My appetite coughed out early and left a sticky note I couldn't read. Music felt like a personal attack. Silence was worse. When people say closure, they make it sound like a door with a satisfying latch. What I had was a gust of wind and a frame. Everyone told me what people tell you. He's not worth it. He did you a favor. This is information. You are lucky you found out now. It takes a special kind of luck to feel like your chest is a drawer stuck halfway open. On a Tuesday, I wrote myself a letter in the notes app because I didn't trust paper. I titled it Facts and wrote, "He is not confused. He is choosing. You are not dramatic. You are correct. Your intuition is not a jealous friend. It is a smoke alarm. You don't have to be the cool girl, the chill girl, the girl who knows the difference between possessive and discerning. You are allowed to want to be the only one." Then I wrote a second letter to the next girl. I did not know if there would be one, but men like him are economies. There is always a next. I wrote it short and mean and gentle and kind. I wrote it like a hand on his shoulder in a crowded room. I printed it at work because I didn't own a printer like an adult. I folded it small. The next day, I drove back to his building at lunch, half common that way, half skip when they've decided on a mission. The manager buzzed me in because I smiled in the way women smile when they don't want to get asked questions. The door was unlocked because some people are protected by the laziness of the universe. I slid a note under the runner just inside his bedroom door, the one his bare feet had probably blessed every morning. A petty sacrament. A rescue flare. Both. Weeks passed in a pattern of healing that made no narrative sense. I missed him most on even-numbered days. I got better and then worse and then better again and called that improvement. I went to a friend's birthday and the cake frosting said 31 in the shaky handwriting of a person not paid enough by the grocery store for their specific skill, and I cried on the patio because the number on the cake had nothing to do with me and also everything to do with time. My mother called and I answered because I was brave that day. She asked if I was eating, and I lied the way you lie to a woman who has already lost more than you ever will. Therapy helped. I didn't want it to. My pride wanted to bootstrap my way out of the ache, but I went anyway. The therapist had eyebrows that made me trust her and a clock that I resented. She asked me where I'd learned that pain was a down payment for love. I said nowhere and then remembered 100 small lessons I had filed under wallpaper. She gave me homework. I did it like a student who wants a sticker. It did not fix me. It gave me a place to put my pieces while I figured out what shape they preferred. One morning months later, I was at a coffee shop that called sizes small, medium, large like an act of rebellion. I was answering emails and pretending that meant I had control over my life when my phone rang with a number I didn't know. Normally, I let those ring out. That day, I answered. Maybe I wanted to prove I wasn't afraid of numbers anymore. Maybe I wanted something to happen that wasn't my choice. A woman's voice. Soft, careful, a fingertip on a bruise. She said my name in a way that sounded like she practiced. She said she found my note. I felt it before I understood it. That bright, cold bloom behind the ribs that means truth has entered the building. She had found the folded square under the runner that I had tucked into the part of the carpet that always curled up and made a small hazard. She told me she was sorry to call me at work if this was work. She told me she was sitting on the edge of the bed where I once learned a new definition of disbelief. She told me he was in the shower. She told me she didn't know whether to leave or wait to make him explain what cannot be explained. I didn't tell her what to do. I told her what I wish someone had told me. That leaving is not an accusation, it is a conclusion. That her pain was not embarrassing. That she was not dramatic. That whatever Q&A she thought would save her would not. That she could walk out and still be a person worth staying for. The part of me that still loves theatre wanted to tell her to throw something heavy and poetic. The part of me that loves my future told her to take her things. After we hung up, I watched a man on the sidewalk tie his dog's bag in a neat knot with a competence that made me cry because care is care even when it's small. I wrote my therapist an email I never sent about what you owe the women who come after you. I wanted to say everything noble. I wanted to be a saint of warning signs. Instead, I ate a banana at my desk and opened a spreadsheet and did my job because being a person is a series of extremely ordinary gestures done while your heart keeps learning. Here is the part where I tell you something about him that complicates the story. It would be charitable to say he was damaged, that he had a father who left or a mother who overloved or a freshman year that made him allergic to honesty. It would be cinematic to discover he keeps everyone at arm's length because he cannot stand the thought of becoming a cliché of a man who ruins women. Maybe all that is true. I don't know. The day I stop caring about his reasons will be the day I graduate from this class I didn't sign up for. I will bring cupcakes when that day arrives. Sometimes late at night my brain tries to edit the story for me. It suggests alternate endings as if I asked for a director's cut. In one, I slam a door so hard the frame needs surgery and he calls out for me and I do not turn. In one, I stay and we negotiate a treaty where I accept he is an event and I am an archive and we somehow coexist as memoir and fireworks. In one, the other woman and I become friends and text each other screenshots. In one, I accept his version, the one where he is not a liar but a tour guide to his own freedom and I should feel lucky to be included. My brain is messy and merciless. It wants closure that snaps like Tupperware. The real ending is that I did not choose any of those. The real ending is that the story keeps ending and I keep choosing me, and both their work. I ran into him once because Los Angeles is a small town that cosplays as a city. I was in line for a movie that only 3 people saw that year and he was 2 humans ahead, hair shorter, smile the same. He looked right through me in that way people do when they hope he'll be the one to pretend not to see. I stood there and felt not nothing, but not the old electricity either. More like an old song that no longer fits your face. There was a girl with him. She looked happy and not yet audited. For a second I wanted to hand her my syllabus of heartbreak, but she would have found me strange and he would have found me predictable. We all play parts until we don't. I wonder who I was in his story. I don't think about it often, but when I do, I hope I was not an easy laugh line. I hope I was at least a complicated paragraph. The truth is, I'm not in his story anymore. That feels like a win bigger than any dramatic scene I could have staged. There's a shop in my neighborhood that sells plants and apology cards. I buy from there now when I need to remember what care looks like with roots. I brought home a snake plant the other day because I read somewhere they like dark corners and stubborn people. I put it in the spot by the window that never shuts all the way, where a draft insists on existing. It's thriving, somehow, in the air that won't be tamed. Every morning, I notice it. Not as proof that I have healed completely, not as evidence that I will never again choose someone who asks me to be small to fit inside their life. I notice it like a friend you wave to on your way to the subway. We keep going. The plant grows. My heart, which is dramatic and ridiculous and absolutely mine, keeps making room in ways that feel like a new language. If you need an ending, here is an honest one. I don't think he was my mistake, I think I was my teacher. I learned what it feels like when passion is a spotlight and commitment is a flashlight, and one of those is better at getting you home. I learned the sound of a woman's voice answering a man's phone and how it can make your ribs into a xylophone. I learned that a key on a desk can be both an apology and a spell breaking. I learned how to write to a stranger and mean it. Sometimes I still imagine the note under the runner, a way paper remembers the shape of a fold. I think about the girl who found it, about the girls who might find others. We leave like breadcrumbs for each other in dark apartments and bright mornings and Instagram DMs. I don't believe in karma anymore. I believe in women who whisper maps to each other. I think about how, on the day I first met him at the potty with the plastic dinosaur in the terrarium, I felt seen. What I didn't understand then was that being seen by someone else is not the same thing as seeing yourself. Here's the provocation I've been circling. I still believe in fast things. Not quick romances, fast instincts. The body knows before the brain drafts an email about it. When my gut clenched in the club, I called it jealousy because jealousy is a louder word than wisdom. Next time, I will honor the quiet voice that says this will cost you more than you are willing to pay. Not because I am fragile, but because I am expensive. And if this sounds like a convenient revelation neat enough for a bow, know this: sometimes, around midnight, when the city is humid with possibility and the playlist finds an old favorite, I remember how easy it felt to fall into him. I remember the light on his face when he told me the weather app was his favorite because it tells the truth without asking for likes. I laugh at that now, and I also miss it. Both things are true. The trick is not picking the true thing that hurts you because it's shiny. The trick is building a life where truth doesn't need to be a performance to be loved. So here's where I leave it, for now. I'm 25 plus. What this taught me: I am not waiting for an apology that won't make a dent. I am not writing a warning label for every man's forehead. I am tending what grows near the stubborn window. I am answering unknown numbers when I have the bandwidth, and letting them ring out when I don't. I am choosing to be a climate, not a season. And somewhere, in a bedroom with a runner that still curls up at the edges, a girl I have never met is sliding a key onto a desk with hands that do not shake, and deciding that the sound of it is not an ending but a language she now speaks fluently.